So welcome everybody. Good morning. Uh, Probably most of you know me. I'm Douglas Roberts. I'm the Education and Development Officer for the SCA. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for our webinar. I'm sorry, I was just letting someone else in there. For our webinar about building online audiences. Now I'm flying solo this morning. I haven't got my co-pilot Robert Wright with me, so if anything goes wrong, just wave a hand or send me a message on the chat there. This is the second of our winter series of learning sessions. Today we're looking at building and maintaining online audiences. Hopefully you've all had a chance to watch the 10-minute introductory video that we put up earlier in the week, which just introduces the main points of this subject, and which I'll be kind of building on in this session. And just to let you know that we're recording this session, and you'll get a chance to access the recording later, probably after Christmas now, actually. But you'll get a chance to access the recording, and I'll also send you a PDF document that has all of the slides that you're going to be subjected to in a minute. The format for the session is that I'm going to present a talk for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to have up to 30 minutes for discussion and sharing of ideas. And the idea is that we finish at around 10:50, or it's going to be 10:55 now. So I'm going to switch you over, if I can find the right button, to just a little visual here that is going to guide us through. Here we go. So hopefully you can all see that. And really, I'm just going to be speaking about some of the points that come up on here, but you will get a copy of all of this material that you're going to see on the screen. So today we're covering 5 main areas, which I introduced in the introductory video. We're going to start by looking at some of the different online platforms, what sorts of audiences we can expect to find on them. And then we're going to have a look at creating and uploading material, something called social media campaigns, content schedules, which I'm sure would appeal to archivists, and then knowing your audience a little better, which we covered in the last one to some extent. So let's kick off with looking at social media. We all know what social media is. It's the companies which offer platforms where people choose the content they're interested in, and the platform then selects what they see based on those choices. So it's important just to remember that the company that runs the platform is choosing what people see. It means that the content is constantly changing, either around a theme, like on Pinterest or Twitter, or on a chronological timeline, also Twitter, but like Facebook or Instagram. So the content that you see from hour to hour, day to day is unpredictable. It's chosen for you by an algorithm, which partly uses your choices, but mostly uses the priorities that are set by advertisers who pay for the data. Social media audiences are also used to interacting with each other and with the providers of content. They tend to have short attention spans, but they're very useful because the people who are part of social media interaction are identifiable. Unless you go on to, well, into the sort of the wild west of the internet, like Reddit or somewhere where everybody's anonymous. But I wouldn't recommend that you get too involved with going on there with archive services. So early in the life of social media companies, they won an important concession from the US government after some quite intensive lobbying. They got the government to pass a law that says that social media companies are not publishers, which means they have no responsibility for the content that's posted on their platforms. And this is why they call themselves platforms rather than publishers. Now, the situation is changing. The EU has passed legislation which forces media companies to take responsibility, and it's changing in the US as well. partly sustained public pressure over extreme and inaccurate content. But at the same time, this kind of stuff is what attracts people to social media platforms. Now, once people connect with you on social media, that connection remains until you or they break it off. And that's one of the advantages of using social media. You don't have to keep recruiting your audience. You don't have to keep persuading them to come back, because they'll come back anyway, because the platform's constantly changing. But you do have to post interesting content or they'll stop following you. Now, I'm making a distinction here between social media platforms and websites. Technically, most of what you visit online is websites. Facebook and Instagram are websites. But I'm differentiating social media platforms and websites that provide tools and services, which we'll look at in a minute, where the website that you run or have a part of. So your own web pages are much more in your control than social media pages. So this might be a part of a company website or an organizational website that you're on, or it may be a dedicated website that you're running. And your website can contain a vast amount of information sections, rather like an archive. And it's your internet home base where you house all your own content. So it's useful to think of pages on your website as being either static or dynamic. The static pages are the ones that are less likely to change from month to month or even year to year. They're the pages that set out your organization's structure or contact details, introductory information, staff profiles. These don't change unless the information changes. But then, other pages are more dynamic and they change more often. So blog pages, news, upcoming events, recent articles, changing displays, exhibitions. And this is how your website's readers or your website's audience is going to see it as well. Some people are going to visit so they can find particular information on a static page, while other people are visiting to see what the latest blog post says, or to look at this week's selection of photographs that you've put up, or old posters or documents. If nothing ever changes on your website, then the only visitors are going to be new ones and people looking for specific information. So it's useful to know who visits your website and why, and what reasons they have for coming back. Are you giving them reasons for coming back? Now let's look at a third category of website, which is the websites that provide tools and services of some kind. Now these are tools and services that help us create better online content and a wider range of material for audiences. A lot of them offer services for free, usually in exchange for personal data, or in the hope that you'll sign up for their premium version once you sort of get annoyed with the limitations that they put on things. Some sites offer free services for people who are just using them for personal use. And then, you might be part of a company or something which you then recommend, and so they get their business that way. So a few examples. SurveyMonkey offers customizable online surveys. It collects the data for you and then it summarizes you, helps you learn more from your audience. Adobe Spark is part of the extremely expensive Adobe Creative Cloud, but it can be used for free to create web pages, posters, social media graphics, logos, leaflets. It's actually really a good set of tools that they've got on there, and you can produce nice looking content for your website on there very quickly. And then you've got online storage, Dropbox, OneDrive, Google, iCloud, Amazon, all providing online storage for large files and sharing of documents between people. So if you want to make material available to your audience, but you don't want to clutter up a web page, then you can put it into online storage and just put a link on your web page. It's worth looking at the free and inexpensive tools that are available online to make web content better, because it can really enhance what you offer. So let's have a look at content. If you're going to attract an audience and then maintain an audience, you've got to be producing content. And as I said in the introductory video, content is your original creative contribution. Content is anything original that you put online. Good content is original, it's of value to your audience, and it's attractive and easy to access. It's what keeps people coming back for more and what encourages them to interact with you. And it has to be interesting. Part of this visual interest, it's not enough just to write something compelling or stick a pretty picture up on the web. You need to put a bit of design into it. So use graphics. video, color, don't use too much color, and photos. It's a very visual environment. Make sure that what you're putting up online invites people to engage with it. I don't mean necessarily responding with comments and replies that you would on social media, but engaging in the sense that they feel you're providing the material for them personally, or to people with their interests and concerns. So think of it like when you're talking on the radio, or even talking in one of these things, and you're sort of going out to an audience. You need to know that the material you're putting out there is relevant. Make sure it's got some consistency of style. That just comes down to, say, using the same fonts or updating on a regular schedule. Look at the range of ways that you can post content online and try them all out. All the different types of content that you can produce, and I've produced a bit of a heap of them on the page there, appeals to a different audience, but they overlap a fair bit. Offer the same material in different ways for people with different learning styles. An editorial article can also be a podcast, and you could also do it as a YouTube video. Like it or not, and I don't really like it, video is king on the internet just now. Making videos isn't easy, but it's a surefire way of engaging your audience. So just a little bit more detail on video and design. When you make a video, now, those of you that have watched my videos will know that I'm not the world's expert on this. I'm in no way comfortable in front of a camera, but make sure that you've got the best equipment that you can manage to get. Laptop webcams are fine for this kind of call, but if you make a video, use a better camera. One of those clip over screen cameras like I've got here. So this is just a clip-on Logitech one that sits on the top of my screen there, and get a decent microphone as well. So if you look down here, you see I've got a microphone sitting in front of me there. This microphone, by the way, is called a Blue Yeti, but you can get a whole range of USB plug-in microphones. Don't shine lights directly in your face when you record a video. It produces a kind of unhealthy pallid sheen on your skin. It's better to have a few lights that are pointed at different angles kind of around you. You might have seen advertised these ring lights. These are actually really good. They sit up above your screen, and they provide a sort of a halo of light that comes at you. But don't use them if you're wearing glasses, because you get two circles of light on the glasses. If you're making videos, if you're making a short video, 90 seconds is about your maximum length that you want to produce. If you're doing a longer video, it shouldn't be much more than 10 minutes. I know my last one was 12 minutes, and probably most of you were flagging by the time you got to the 10th minute. If you make longer videos than this, and obviously people do, make sure that you pace them. Changes of subject and places for people to pause. Videos longer than 20 minutes, you'll find that they don't get watched all the way through often. A few little things on designing web pages. Limit your color palette to about 5 colors at the most, and 3 colors ideally. A magazine format of boxes and columns that break up a web page. This can actually be a bit of a problem to do in WordPress. It's easier to think of WordPress in horizontal layers. Rule of thirds. Break a page up into 3 columns if you can. Or 3 this way. And most web design software will give you a facility for seeing what it looks like on different devices. Bullets, borders, boundaries. It's kind of self-explanatory, but lines to just break up content a little bit. Be aware of boundaries. Don't put stuff too close to the edges of screens, because you'll find that tablets and things tend to cut it off. And use bullets to summarize things. It's better to be short and snappy on the internet. With text, make sure that you're using an accessible style that addresses your audience. I read a lot of stuff online that reads like somebody's just talking to themselves. Make sure that you know that you are addressing somebody when you write something and put it on the internet. Generally, it's a good idea to use more paragraphing than you would in a print document, and it's better to use fonts without serifs. So let's have a look at social media posts. There's a huge range of stuff that you might post on social media, and I don't want to stifle your creativity by giving you a sort of a template to say this is how you post stuff on social media, because you're all, I'm sure, very good at it, and archives I know are very busy on social media, and it's great to see. So just a few tried and tested principles that are aimed specifically at getting a higher audience on social media. Like I said before, always have your audience in mind. Have a reason why you're putting something up there, which is based on what you think your audience is looking for. Ideally, make sure it's part of a plan. So rather than thinking, oh, I've got to put something up on Facebook today, what will I put up? Spend an hour every 2 or 3 weeks writing a whole list of posts that you're going to put up on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and then just work your way through the schedule. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be spontaneous if you want to, but if you've got a schedule, it takes the pressure out of it a bit, and it means that what you put up today can be connected in some way to what you put up yesterday. You want each post to be part of a kind of a longer dialogue rather than being a random outburst or an unconnected snippet, unless you're responding to something which has happened that day. Keep social media posts short. Most platforms limit the amount of text that's visible without clicking to see more. And Twitter, of course, famously limits the number of characters that you can put up. It doesn't seem to stop some people from putting up multiple posts that just go ... at the end of each one. Don't get me started. Visual material, use as much as you can of visual material. An image is much more likely to attract somebody to read the post that goes with it. Post regularly, but that doesn't mean slavishly to a timetable. Timetables have their merits for you as well as for your audience, but beware of posting constantly, because people get fed up with seeing too much from one source, and then they'll hide you or they'll snooze you or they'll just unfollow you. So a schedule of putting things up is easier for you as well. When you're planning, coordinate posts across platforms. So you can flag up an Instagram post on Facebook and then mention it on Twitter as well. Audiences are typically checking several different social media feeds through the course of the day. And if they see coordinated messaging from you, they're much more likely to remember the message that you put out. They're likely to feel that you're more interesting to follow. So this kind of coordinated plan or posting around a theme or leading up to an event or marking a wider social campaign is sometimes called a social media campaign. So let's have a look at social media campaigns. A campaign is designed to achieve an end goal of some kind. So they typically do one of these things. They build up an audience for an event on a set date, or they build expectations for something that's happening. Or a social media campaign can be aimed at changing people's attitudes towards an issue, or towards an organization or a cause, or to modify people's behavior. You can use social media campaigns to raise awareness of a change that's happening in society, or a change that's happening in your organization, or a change in the law. A social media campaign going on about something called Brexit at the moment, apparently. Social media campaigns are often aimed at associating an organization with a sense of fun or with a particular social phenomenon. So we see this a lot with business campaigns. The way you design a social media campaign is you plan out a coordinated series of social media posts across platforms over a set period of time. You set up a timetable for these posts, and they often start by little posts to get people curious, mysterious posts like film trailers giving hints and saying, oh, come back tomorrow, stay tuned, we'll see what's going on with this, can you guess what's happening? And then as the campaign moves on, the front posts get more frequent, more open about what's happening. But the key to social media campaigns is inviting people to participate by doing something fun and sharing it with all of the other people who are involved. So you're trying to build a sense of momentum. This is often a short film or a photograph of people doing something. Excuse me. So here's some examples of some social media campaigns that have happened in the last little while. Between July and August in 2014, can you believe it was that long ago? Something called the Ice Bucket Challenge was set up by a young man who was suffering from motor neuron disease. And the idea was that people emptied a bucket of water and ice over themselves and then challenged two other people to do it. And they donated money to motor neuron disease research. And over a year, they raised 220 million American dollars for motor neuron disease research. It was an extraordinary campaign that just sort of took off like wildfire across the internet. People were posting, they were putting it up on YouTube, and then they were posting videos of themselves on Facebook and every other video sharing platform. Coors Light, the beer company, ran a campaign last year called, this year, called Could Use a Beer, where they asked people to upload a 30-second clip of themselves looking really interested into a camera. And the idea was that you could then play this on a Zoom call while you nipped away to get a beer. The idea was to associate their beer with a sense of relief from work boredom. So that was a very simple campaign. It got people to do something. As soon as people participate in something, they feel engaged and they feel like they're part of something. And this is really the reason for getting people involved. Now, the other one that you might have seen is this one where all the pictures are of the Getty Museum Challenge. They asked people simply to, while they were in lockdown, create a picture which matched a famous portrait, and then post up both the portrait or the picture and the one that they'd done of themselves. And there was some, you just have, if you Google Getty Museum Challenge, there's some hilarious and quite brilliant reproductions of famous paintings. What were they aiming to do? They wanted to associate the Getty Museum and their art with people having fun in lockdown. And they wanted to raise awareness of works of art. All they had to do was to set the thing up, and then people kept it going on their own. That's what a social media campaign does. Okay, so social media campaign involves planning in advance what content's going up in a schedule that's designed to build an audience and deliver a message. This is a broader message for web content and for building audiences. Have a similar approach to all of your web content. Your audience is much more likely to grow and remain loyal if you've planned out what material you're going to put online and when. So you make a content schedule. It's a fancy name for a calendar and a timetable. So think about what your overall web content is saying about your service. So your overall web content is all of your social media activity and what's going on your website and anything else that your service is doing online. People will tend to connect all that together and form a picture of who you are and what you are based on that. What story does that overall picture tell about your archive service? If you create a schedule of new activity, it's less stressful overall because you put the work into planning and then you just follow the plan. And obviously you stay present with it and you change things around as you go. I would suggest don't be too ambitious. Carefully assess what you already do and then look at your workload and decide what's manageable and achievable in a timetable of new content. So it might be that you put up a once a week Facebook post, a fortnightly blog post, and a monthly update to your website. So start with that and then add in something else and change it around until you're happy with the level of the workload. But make sure that you're keeping it regular. Make sure that whatever timetable you set for yourself, you're able to maintain. Who's out there? So let's have a look at knowing your audience. This is the last thing we're going to have a look at today. Maintaining your audience online is a lot easier if you know who they are and what they're interested in. Now, with social media, you get a lot of information about the people who interact with your posts. If you've set up an organizational page on the site, so if personal users don't get this information quite as much, but if you set up a page, it tells you which posts were the most popular, the demographic profile and location of the people who interacted with posts, when they accessed them, and how that post compares with other posts. With websites, you can track similar data about page views using Google Analytics or other tools, which you can usually get as plugins in WordPress, Squarespace, and most other web building platforms. Now, this is the kind of data that you can work out through trial and error what's most likely to be popular online. Obviously, with social media, you can also interact with people more directly by responding to comments, inviting people to comment, and even using direct messaging with people. You should be careful about this. Online environment can be quite volatile, and people sometimes don't like too much interaction. But as with a social media campaign, if you invite people to participate and then take a note of what people say in their comments and the way that they participate, it can inform your choices about what you do next in terms of building up your online presence. Use surveys as well to collect information about the group preferences. So social media gives you kind of insights into what individuals are interested in, but SurveyMonkey or another survey platform can give you information about the general trends that your audience is following. So here's a summary. I'm not going to read all this out, but there's a few sort of shorthand tips to building and maintaining an online audience. This phenomenon of an online audience, or us thinking about an online audience, has become front and center because of COVID-19. And even when the impact of COVID-19 lessens, the online environment is with us for the long term. We're going to be wanting to maintain our online presences, and we're going to want to cultivate our online audiences because people are used to accessing things online now. So getting up to speed and getting visible online is really important right now. Now, after the webinar today, as I said earlier, we're going to upload the recording of the session for you to see again if that's helpful, or you can just flick through it. I'm also going to send you a PDF version of the slides along with a set of notes. You're welcome to contact me if you'd like support with developing online content, and my email address is down the bottom of the screen there for you to take a note of, and that'll also come out with the PDF. So what I'm going to do now is open up to any discussion or questions. These are just a few questions to consider, and I'll switch out of this PowerPoint in a minute, but I've got the questions up in front of me and I can just read them out. But I asked you to think about who your online audience is at the moment, what your online presence looks like, how you use social media at the moment, but also what have you seen online that you like the look of, that you'd like to reproduce yourself, and how can we, as a group, support each other to do more of this online stuff more effectively across archives as well as just within your own. Where to from here? So over to you. Let me know if you've got questions or if you want to ask the group questions. Let's have a chat.
Hi Douglas, thank you for that. Just a quick question. In terms of Google and so on, is it very much the case that video and imagery is king over text all the time? Because the last I looked into this, I think Google Analytics suggested that they push video more than anything else. Is that still the case?
Yes, it is. That's certainly my understanding. people are accessing visual content very strongly at the moment, and yes, video is, you only have to look on YouTube to see the millions and millions of videos on there, and the enormous range of material that's there now. A lot of people, for choice now, if they want to find something out, they'll go onto YouTube and look up a video of somebody explaining it. So yeah, I think video is really important. Not that you should necessarily substitute other material for video, but use video to enhance. You can introduce something in a little 90-second video, take a look at our articles over here and have a look at this over here. But people like to see that. They like to put a face to a website.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question perhaps for the wider group, if that's okay.
Hi, Chloe. Yes.
Hi, thanks very much for the talk. That was great. Something that you talked about a bit, obviously, how can we support one another through social media and online content? And I was just wondering if anyone else perhaps is thinking more about how to get out of that almost echo chamber, because I think archives and museums are really great at supporting one another, retweeting content, sharing material, but sometimes I wonder if it's a little bit harder to kind of break beyond that and reach further audiences. And I was just wondering if anyone has any particular experience with that, or any thoughts on how best to go about that.
Any thoughts about that, anyone? Archivists are very good at talking to each other, but how do we go? What's people's experience of going further afield?
Hi, it's Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
We had a really good experience. I'm at the Glasgow School of Art Archives and Collections, and we liaised with the general Glasgow School of Art and their marketing department, so like a higher level, and we did a takeover for a week. And we took over their main account, and we were the only ones that posted for that week. And we got a really good response. We got a lot of new followers from that. So it was branching out, because we have a lot of followers who are students and staff at GSA and at other organisations and archives, but this kind of got more kind of people that weren't already on our radar, sort of thing. So Chloe, I don't know what organisation you're with, but is there the possibility of doing something like that?
Thank you, that's really helpful. So I'm with the Salvation Army International Heritage Centre.
Oh, okay.
So we're quite sort of a small niche archive. We have an archive, library and museum, but there are quite a few sort of Salvation Army channels for the different departments and sort of the main UK territorial account, as it were. So I think there would definitely be some possibility to kind of connect with the other accounts.
Yeah, because what we found as well was the takeover worked really well. We got a bigger audience from that, but also we found that even just actually tagging GSA as a higher level in our posts, which is handy because it's a really, really short handle, so you can kind of slip it in. But that kind of broadens that audience immediately for actually very little effort. The takeover was good and we got this brand new audience, but it was a lot of effort and we divvied that up between the team. But what we found was actually just including GSA tag, in some of our posts, it actually works really well that you are immediately opening yourself up to a wider audience. So I wonder if that's maybe a possibility with yours, that you could tag some of the higher level accounts in that.
Yeah, that's really helpful advice. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Hi, Fiona Bruce.
Hi, Fiona.
Hi, from the Scottish Jewish Archives Centre.
Hi.
I don't know if this is helpful or not, because we've got our own niche. So being a Jewish archives and the Jewish archives for all of Scotland, but we have an outreach across the world because there's a Scottish Jewish diaspora as well as, the more general Jewish diaspora. But we also link into lots of Jewish communal organisations that which helps spread our reach. You know, the Scottish Council of Jewish Communities, Association of Jewish Refugees, there's Holocaust educational organisations. So reaching out and being connected to other associated organisations who are not archival, but who have an interest in our content has been good for us.
Great, thank
I think the principle that we're hearing here is that old one of getting an article in the paper. It's getting your material out onto a different platform from the one that is just going to be talking to other archives. And you know, so Jennifer's experience of even just taking over an account on a different area for a short time was that those people, it came to the notice of those people, and then they come over. So finding ways to get your material onto a completely other audience, just for them to see it. And that can come about, I think, if you follow other organizations. Twitter's particularly good for this. If you subscribe and follow other organizations and then comment on things and then mention something that you're doing that's relevant to something that they're doing. So it's about following other conversations and looking for an opportunity to mention yourself. And it's all sort of quite competitive and opportunist, but that's what you've got to do to get visibility in a very, very busy marketplace.
And you can also, we find too, so just to go further with that you know, for instance, communal organizations who are celebrating an anniversary or having an event, we can dig something out from our archives that links to the history of that organization and you know, and get wider coverage that way and remind people that we're here. It's not just about today and celebrating today's anniversary, but we've got material about the whole history of your organization.
I think also one of the other things is, you know, most of us work for organisations that have a media team or a comms team. Get friendly with them. You know, they are not just for your chief executive; they are for the whole organisation. And you know, speak to them. Ask them to do, you know, to do periodic posts for you to sort of boost your signal. And the other thing is, well, certainly where I work at a university, you know, we've got various, you know, we've got various different departments that have their own tags, if you like, for Twitter. So we've got alumni, for example, and you know, if you tag those departments in to whatever you're doing, they will also have their own audiences, which will get your signal boosted outside of archive circles.
Thanks, Rory. Yeah, I like that expression, signal boosting.
I'd also just add as well, speaking as an archivist for a publisher, get to know your local newspaper, because you know, their entire raison d'etre is to fill column inches, and if you can help them do that, they will bite your hand off. So I mean, we have good links with obviously Rory and you know, Abertay and Dundee University for our papers, and you know, it's one of those things that you can actually become a regular in some respects, which is quite nice. You know, you're reaching an entirely new audience.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly my experience with local newspapers, is that they're often desperate for content, and if you can supply them with something interesting, and just, you know, slip the name and the hashtag and all the rest of it into the article as well, then yeah, you're reaching a very big audience then.
And nostalgia sells. It really does. And you know, archives are very, very good for having photographs. And you know, these are really good for social media, but also for newspapers as well, because people love seeing old pictures, and certainly they generate an awful lot of comments, you know, in social media posts.
I would just say, sorry, Samantha, hi.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to the nostalgia selling point. I work for Bacardi, and so on our corporate Instagram account, occasionally archive posts will feature for various things, but some of the biggest performing posts on our corporate accounts have been old advertisements, for example, because people just love old advertising. So yeah, the nostalgia factor is serious.
I would just add into
I
that.
didn't catch. Can I just ask? I didn't catch who Samantha works for. What's organization?
Bacardi.
Yeah, Bacardi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just add into this. Yeah, I agree about nostalgia selling. You've got to. I think it's important to think selling what. Ask yourself again, what's the purpose of putting this stuff up there? What are you, if you're trying to make yourself visible, what is it that you're making visible and why? So go back to a schedule, but also a purpose for doing this. And I know that we've got this general purpose that you want to be visible and so that you can continue to get funding because people know you exist, but take it beyond that, and putting a schedule together. Once you've got a purpose, say over 6 months of, over the 6 months, we're going to build these posts up to achieve a certain end. You'll find that there's a lot more purpose to what you choose to put up, what kind of nostalgia you put up, and how this week's nostalgia links to last week's nostalgia, and builds a story.
I would add to that the series point, thinking of how things can connect. So over the last, 6 or 8 months, we've been thinking about how we can make our archives relevant to, well, since I work for a corporate archive, it's making it relevant to like the consumer is essentially the point.
Yep.
And we have several heritage brands that have quite a long history, and therefore there's a lot of history on the actual bottle of spirit. So whether that be Bacardi or Dewar's or Martini, Benedictine, there's a few different really strong heritage cues that appear on the bottle. So working with our comms team, we've been able to make videos, going back to the video is king, telling a little bit about the history on the bottle and making that directly relevant for the people who are consuming these drinks every day. So that's kind of like, what is the point? What is the ultimate reason that we are telling people about this history?
And I think that's one of the really important roles of a company archive or industrial archives, is building and maintaining that company story, because ultimately that's what sells a product. People buy stories, particularly when you're dealing with the sorts of products that you're dealing with, Samantha. A lot of it is about the image of that product, and yeah, the history it's so important, and I think that even public archives can engage in that kind of thinking, building a story around a product, around a town, for example, or around an industry within a town, or around an institution, and creating that kind of corporate history, as it were.
I think also that's a good way to help build your new audience as well, if you like, taking yourself away from the nostalgia aspect.
Yes.
And actually, ultimately what you're wanting to engage new people, and in some cases that means you have to repurpose your archive to a certain extent, in order to actually, like you say, just make it relevant for your new audience. If there is some other way that, so for example, with us as Haberté, computer games is a really big thing. And we are looking at trying to find ways to put the archives in front of the computer games course, and saying, look, you have this wonderful resource that you can use. So yeah, absolutely, trying to find new ways, trying to find new ways to repurpose your archive, I think, is a really important way to to find new audiences.
Hi, Douglas. It's Fiona from Highland.
Hi, Fiona.
Hi. I just wanted to say I completely agree with the kind of talking head video. We've been forced in lockdown to start a Learn with Lorna series, which is a Facebook Live publication every Thursday.
I love it.
And she's just done her 38th, I think, yesterday. And the audience from that has grown tremendously over the months. We have a worldwide group of people that call in and view, a lot from Australia. They sit in the evening with their glass of wine and enjoy her stories. And these are just stories from the collections. So it's bringing that alive. It's, you know, putting it out there. And because we've got such a big area to cover, we can use all the 4 offices. It's been a huge plus for us. We're up to, I think it's about 110,000 views since we started.
That's tremendous.
So that's, yeah, it's incredible. And it's also available on YouTube, so people can watch it if they're not on Facebook. So I would definitely say even a little 2 or 3 minutes, she does it for half an hour, but a 2 or 3 minute video brings in huge engagement.
Yes. And for those of you who are already thinking the horror, half an hour, start with 90 seconds. Yeah. Start with something really short, you know, short, snappy, and I don't like appearing on video. Lorna has done just an extraordinary job. She's so natural on camera. You feel like you're in the room there with her, and she's done a great job, and she's an inspiration. I hate appearing on camera, so I started out by doing animated videos and discovered how easy they are to produce. So play around with animation, play around with different camera angles and so on. But yes, I'd agree with Fiona. Have a go at doing some video, and yes, you'll get people from all over the world. Again, nostalgia, but yes, stories are the as you know are the meat and drink of archives. All you need really is a half decent camera, a microphone, and some recording software on your computer, and a decent backdrop as well. Just make sure that you know what's behind you before you start recording.
Can I ask a question?
Hi, Fiona. Yes.
Yeah, there's concern amongst my fellows at the Archive Centre about putting too much online, and because we want to attract people into our building and, you know, see our displays. We're in a heritage building, which we want to attract people to as well. So how do you balance, you know, how much you put on and how much you make available, so that you don't actually, you know, deter people from coming to the building because they've seen it? And how do you monetize online? You know, because I'm assuming we all have problems with getting funding. How do you, apart from, you know, demonstrating to grantees and funds that you know you're worth supporting because you're a wonderful organization, and they can see how well you interact with the public, but how do you monetize that is a question. And how do you get the balance between revealing too much but keeping people interested?
So a couple of different questions there. Any thoughts from anybody about either of those questions?
So Fiona and Fiona to another Fiona. I would say with the Learn with Lorna, we do provide a lot of information. We ask for donations. So I work for High Life Highland, which is a charity set up by the Highland Council, but we only get part of our funding from the council. So these times are difficult for us. So we ask for donations. Going forward into next year, we have planned a social media year for themes per month. And we're going to do paid talks behind a paywall. So again, you're not giving all information away for nothing. You might get something back. And I would also say with the increased audience, it's advocacy you're looking at from, you know, if you are struggling, you have many more supporters, maybe worldwide, who can raise your profile and support you if things get really tough.
Thanks, Fiona.
We do, it's not behind a paywall necessarily a talk, but we've done a lot of very successful online events since since lockdown. which have been hugely better attended than sometimes our actual in-person events are, and which have raised staggering amounts of money. So, I mean, does that, having online events, does that count as part of your social media profile?
Well, I would have said so, yes. And I don't think you necessarily have to think that it's either or. I think, you know, as Fiona said from Highland said, if you raise the profile of the organization, but you also keep plugging the fact that you've got this site that people can come to, you'll raise the profile of both. So you won't be taking business away from visitors to the site by providing online content, I don't think. And you can use the one to drive the other. So, you know, I would say the next 6 months, it's not going to be that likely that there's going to be hordes of visitors going everywhere. So use the time to build an online audience, to build awareness of the organization, but also use that online content to invite people to come when it's possible to come to the place. So even a virtual tour of the place can make people feel, oh, I'd love to go there when it's open. And you can always plug that at the end of every video. You can say, look, you know, we're going to be open on August the 1st. You know, why don't you come along? And
no, we are planning that. It's yes, it's on our to-do list over the next. Yeah. It's just, you know, we're constantly asked, and again, because we've got a worldwide reach, about, you know, is your catalogue online? And we've been resistant to that, and how, you know, about just how much we can put, apart from the fact that it would be, you know, and is your archive digitized? And I want to search your archive from, you know, from the USA. I mean, the costs of doing that are just horrendous, and we're quite a small organization behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But a question of how much you can reveal and share online without deterring people from actually coming.
Anyone else got thoughts about that question, or any other points that came up today, or anything else that anyone would like to say before I declare the meeting closed and say our farewells?
I think I was just going to suggest something to help people, you know, with planning, you know, their posts. Twitter has a couple of really good schedulers, where you can actually front load your posts. So basically, you can maybe spend about an hour or two a month or so, basically just typing up your posts, loading your images, and scheduling when they're going to be released. I think one of them is called TweetDeck, and the other one I think is called Hootsuite. So just to share that with people, you know, just I know for myself, you know, I find it very difficult to get the time to actually do posts on Twitter. So I quite often use TweetDeck just to actually, you know, just set aside an hour just to sort of schedule posts for, you know, for the next week or so. So
thanks, Rory. That's really useful. Thank you.
Hi, could I quickly ask, are there any tools you'd recommend in particular for animated videos?
Hi, Fiona. Yes, I can only recommend the one that I've actually been using, which is a paid tool. I can't remember how much I paid for it now. It wasn't a great deal. It was certainly less than £50. And it's called Video Scribe. And that one is one of these ones that produces the whiteboard animation. So the hand writing the writing, and sketching the drawings and so on. And it gives you a whole library of of cartoon images, and you can put photographs into it as well, and you create a visual story that way. If you have a look on the SCA site, there's actually a couple of my animated films on there, but they're basically the whiteboard animations. So that's called Video Scribe.
That's great, thank you.
I've been using one for a while now called Stop Motion. I think, again, it was paid, but minimal. I mean, £5, and I've had this in for about 3 years now. And Ara actually did a good workshop on this about 3 years ago, I think it was. So it's easy to use, and again, not very expensive. So maybe another one to consider. Yeah,
I'd agree, Barry. Stop motions, it's a great little tool because you can use it on a tablet, so you can produce these lovely little stop motion films. Now, a few people dropping away here, so I'm gonna say goodbye. Thank you very much for being part of our webinar today. Do drop us a line if you want to have a chat with me about any of this. I'm often available for a quick chat or an email, and hope to see you next time for our next webinar, which is in January. So a very happy holiday season, Christmas holiday, whatever holiday you take. I wish you well.